Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming here today at Brussels Press Club to jointly think about the possible spillover of extremism and terrorism in South Asian region after the fall of Kabul. Since the people of Jammu Kashmir, who are divided between Pakistan, China, and India, are the victims of terrorism since 22nd of October 1947. As you might knew that the Jammu and Kashmir was a princely state in the region outside British India. The ruler of Jammu Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, intended to remain impartial between the newly created dominions, namely Pakistan and India. Having regard of that division of British India, the ruler of Jammu Kashmir upped standstill agreement with Pakistan and India. On 12th of August 1947, the standstill agreement was honored by the government of Pakistan on the request of government of Jammu and Kashmir. But unfortunately, after 2 months, the state was invaded from Pakistan with the help of the non-state actors, the term which coined after 7 decades. The Jammu Kashmir, known as a paradise on earth, where the people of different faiths, languages, cultures, ethnicities were living in complete harmony, and the government was looking after them in a most secular manner during that time. Of course, we cannot compare 18th century or the 19th century rule of law with the 21st century's international law and the modernization of the governance and autonomous status of different states and the regions. But we are undoubtedly proud of our rulers who were evolving gradually with the passage of time, and they were keep reforming primitive social, political, and constitutional order in the state. The historical reforms were taken place during Maharaja Ranbir Singh, the second ruler of Jammu and Kashmir, and the laws which were incorporated during his reign are still in practice, known as Ranbir Penal Code. And historical state subject law, the inception of Jammu Kashmir High Court and Jammu Kashmir People's Assembly, known as Parja Sabha, was also created during the last Maharaja Hari Singh, respectively in 1927, 28, and 1934. So this was a short brief of our state. And there is also another aspect that since the division of British India, Pakistan constantly tried to occupy Jammu and Kashmir by force. The first operation which was launched in Jammu Kashmir was known as Operation Gulmerg. The second operation, which resulted India-Pakistan war, was known as Operation Gibraltar. The third operation, which is still going on in different shapes and manifestation, is known as Operation Tupac, which was designed by the military general and ruler of Pakistan, General Zia-ul-Haq, and it came into force after his death in 1987-86. And another operation was also conducted in the northern part of Jammu Kashmir, which resulted in India-Pakistan war in 1999. That was called Operation Ko-Pema. After operation, as in English, it is Operation Mountaineers. So these are two different parallel aspects which the people of Jammu and Kashmir are facing. And today, since the Taliban has taken over Kabul, the government of Pakistan, its ministers, some of its journalists, academia, eulogized Taliban victory and claimed that the Afghanistan is graveyard of empires, and that the United States of America, along with its NATO counterparts, have been defeated by the Afghans. And so they have won the battle with the help of God. And from Afghanistan, they can conquer entire world to implement their kind of international order. This kind of media war and media propaganda is supporting extremist groups, not only inside Pakistan, but also supported by Pakistan, and which are staying in different shapes in Pakistani administrated part of Jammu and Kashmir, which is formerly known as Azad Kashmir. And I hope our colleagues and fellow speakers would shed more light on this phenomena of extremism and terrorism, which is spreading from Afghanistan, supported by Pakistan and its military establishment, and that is threatening civil society, democratic forces, and women rights in the region. And from the region, it's jeopardizing peace and stability of the entire world. These were the introductory remarks, and now I would like to invite Mr. Andy Vermouth. He is a prominent human rights activist and also NGO representative in Belgium, and recently he has visited United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, and there he has made invaluable contribution for the promotion and protection of fundamental human rights and right to development of the people. So the floor is yours, Mr. Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamil. I wanted to talk about the importing of terrorism out of Asia into Belgium. So hello, everybody. My name is Andy Vermouth, and I'm the president of Post Versa Fundamental Rights Chapter. We were stunned to learn that a homemade bomb had been found in the town of Roeselare in West Flanders, Belgium. A Palestinian man has been detained on accusations of being a member of a terrorist organization. During a search of the man's home in Roeselare, explosives were discovered and confiscated. An earlier incident in Antwerp included him and his brother attacking and beating up their allegedly two Western sister and brother-in-law. As a president of Post Versa Fundamental Rights Chapter, I congratulate the Belgian security services for the breakthrough made in this case. This is a result of an effective and good cooperation between the various Belgian security services. The two males were taken into custody, according to a statement released by the Federal Public Prosecutor's Office on Tuesday morning, the 28th of September, 2021. The first brother has already been arrested during the weekends of September 18 and 19, and the second brother, who had been on the run for a week, surrendered to the authorities on Friday, 24 September 2021, after a week on the run. As a president of Post Versa Fundamental Rights Chapter, I was pleased to hear that these people have been detained, given the security risk they pose. The explosives were discovered in his home on the Hoogleedse Steenweg in Roeselare, West Flanders, on Sunday, September 19. After the police conducted the search on Tuesday afternoon, the federal public prosecutor said that the investigating magistrates in Bruges has arrested just the second of two men who had been detained. The other brother was already released. As a president of Post Versa Fundamental Rights Chapter, I do not understand why the other brother was not further detained, considering he was also along to whip his sister for allegedly behaving too Western. Deputy Public Prosecutor Wenke Roggen said the other Palestinian brother was detained on suspicion of participating in the operations of a terrorist organization, as well as a number of breaches of the weapons legislation. The Public Prosecutor's Office did not want to discuss the specific explosive that were discovered in the home because it might jeopardize the investigation. In this case, Roggen describes the situation as follows. It involves a potentially lethal gadget, empty bullet casings, and powder residues. With Post Versa Fundamental Rights Chapter, we conducted, of course, further investigations into this case. And it seems that the weapon was a homemade device, perhaps a kind of pipe bomb, according to our knowledge. This consists of a metal tube that has been loaded with explosives and sealed with screw-on caps. Electrical wires are sent to a ignition mechanism via one of the caps on the end of the cap. In the world of investigative circles, the bomb is primitive, but yet very effective. As a president of Post Versa Fundamental Rights Chapter, I'm concerned about such extreme figures who manufacture homemade bombs, quite possibly not to tear down a wall, but effectively to carry out an attack, a terroristic attack on Belgian soil. The integration policy has here clearly failed. The Belgian DOVO demining agency was called to remove the explosives and conduct additional investigation. According to the reports, the brothers who lived in the house in Roeselare where the explosives were discovered provided an improbable explanation for the existence of the explosives in their home. Despite the fact that the two detained individuals were previously known to the police as being radicalized, it is unclear if they were also on the so-called OCAT lists of possibly dangerous extremists. The tale of the brothers began on Friday, September 17th in Antwerp, when the local police were sent to a reported house invasion. On the scene, it was discovered that the two Palestinian males had broken into the house of their sister and brother-in-law. It was determined that the couple had acted in a too Western manner by the radical brothers that they had been beaten. The Antwerp police district recognized immediately that the brothers were suspected of being radicalized and sent a specialized arrest teams to arrest their pair. They discovered the bombs when they attempted to arrest them in Roeselare. The Antwerp police detained the first brother, and the investigation was taken over by the terrorist division of the Federal Judiciary Police in Brussels. A spokesperson for the Federal Public Prosecutor's Office said at this time there were no indications that any additional suspects may be engaged in the investigation. As a president of POSVERSA, Fundamental Rights Chapter, I hope that the investigation will set further light on the possible attack that could allegedly be carried out with this homemade bomb. This self-made bomb may, of course, not have been made for hobby purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andy Vermooth, for shedding a light on the ongoing situation in Belgium, which is the capital of European Union, and most of the important institutions of EU are situated in this country and also in the city of Brussels. This we can see from where these extremist groups seeking knowledge and energy and motivation. So in this regard, the security agencies and the different governments should also take cognizance of online content, which is actually encouraging those youth who are misguided and brainwashed and sent from those areas which are hit by the extremism and terrorism, and also with other regional conflicts. So now I would like to invite Mrs. Manal Muslimi. She is the advisor of European People's Party for its international relations. So now the floor is yours, madam. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jamil, and thank you everyone for the invitation. I'm really honored to be here to speak about women's rights in South Asia, and also violence against women, mainly in South Asia after what is happening now in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. Women's rights and violence against women in South Asia. Let us start with the example of Pakistan. Noor Mukaddam's ultimate hours have been terror-filled. Beaten repeatedly, the 27-year-old girl and thrown from a window, however, changed in a dragged back, crushed once more, and sooner or later beheaded. An adolescent's body has been charged together along with her killing. The grotesque dying ultimate week in the community of the Pakistani capital, Islamabad, is the trendy of a sequence of assaults on ladies in Pakistan, in which human rights activists say it's such a gender primarily based totally attacks are rising and show the degree of extremism and violence against women. Muqaddam is the daughter of a diplomat, and her fame as a member of the elite has shown or has highlighted the relentless and developing violence in opposition to women in Pakistan, stated a distinguished rights activist Tahira Abdullah. But the number of ladies and women who suffer from such violence are on the rise. Most of the time, they are from the middle class, and their deaths are now regularly ignored. I quote, "I may want to come up with a listing longer than my arm, best in a single week," end of quote, of assaults in opposition to women, stated Abdullah. I quote, "The epidemic of sexual crimes and violence in opposition to women in Pakistan is a silent epidemic. No one sees it. No one is speaking about." End of quote. Still, Pakistan's parliament didn't issue any law against domestic violence that seeks to defend women from violence at home, including the assaults from their husbands. Instead, it requested an Islamic ideology, and it weighs any measure against the Islamic law. In 2020, Pakistan coming in at 153 out of 163 countries, before headed of best Iraq, Yemen, and Afghanistan, which held the ultimate spot regardless of billions of dollars spent on 2 decades of worldwide interest on gender problems. Many of the assaults in Pakistan are so referred as honor killings, in which the offender is a brother, father, or a different male relative. Each 12 months, more than 1,000 ladies are killed in one way. A lot of them are unreported, says Human Rights Watch workers. I quote, "The government didn't set up safety or duty for abusers in opposition to ladies and girls, inclusive of so referred to as honor killings, pressure or forced marriage, which human rights document mentioned." The human rights corporations had been sharply focusing on Prime Minister Imran Khan and his authorities in his excuses of the perpetrators' assaults on women. This kind of behavior encourages the human rights violations regarding women. His data minister, Fawad Chowdhury, says Khan's statements had been taken out of context and denied violence in opposition to women without supplying any evidence. He stated that we encourage ladies in politics and sports activities and in provinces in which Khan celebrations dominates human rights regulations, and which had been strengthened lately. I quote, "I assume this notion isn't always truly near reality, that during Pakistan, women aren't secure, and perhaps there is a misogyny in exercise in Pakistan," end of quote. Chaudhry stated in an interview, one of all Khan's cabinet ministers, Ali Amin Gandpur, advised a rally of male supporters that he would slap, I quote, "a lady competition political leader." Such testimonies witness that there is a growth of ultra-conservative or even extremist values in Pakistan, stated Amir Rana, one of the Pakistan Institute of Peace Studies. Now I go to the second case, the case of Afghanistan. Although Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid promised on August 17th that the Taliban might honor ladies' rights inside the Islamic law, violence in opposition to women continues. The Taliban shot a girl in Takhar province because she doesn't wear a burqa, simply a few hours later. The Taliban additionally issued new legal guidelines and rules within the captured districts of Takhar province, ordering ladies to no longer depart domestic alone, and set dowry rules for women. These movements humiliate women. The home state of affairs and in Afghanistan says that ladies are victims of violence since 1990s. Women are victims of numerous kinds of violence: honor killings, rape, beatings, lashings, imposed prostitutions, acid assaults, forced marriage, and marriage to remedy tribal and land associated animosity. Violence in opposition to women at some point of militant assaults has additionally grown to be a popular manner of lifestyles within the war-ravaged country. According to the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, there had been 1,146 ladies casualties in 2020, 390 killed and 756 injured. This marked the very best wide variety considering the systematic documentation started in 2009. Women had been mainly harmed from the use of rockets, exclusive devices, etc. Many had been additionally killed and injured in centered killing incidents. The Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission had instances of excessive violence dedicated with regard to women. It recorded a complete of 3,477 instances of violence in opposition to women. This comprised 1,241 instances of physical violence regarding women, including instances of mutilation, sexual violence, and torture regarding ladies, verbal, intellectual violence, financial and economic violence are depriving these women from their rights to the inheritance, or also the right to supplying alimony, which is nafaka, and stopping a function in their own circle of relatives, promoting their assets without their consent. These instances of domestic violence, early marriage, forced marriage, are stopping women from going to school, from having economic independence. And the state of affairs in Afghanistan is really afraid of the situation because of these instances of violence regarding women have never ended. With the Taliban now in control, women's rights advocates should support Afghani women and should show solidarity towards what they are enduring every day. Now I come to the conclusion with regard to the situation here in Belgium and in Europe. These women are sometimes escaping from discrimination, violence, persecution, to find the same strategy sometimes here, sometimes here in Europe. Europe witnessed so many honor killings on its soil. Women from Muslim background coming from South Asia, Middle East, can be an object to forced hijab and forced marriage. Unfortunately, political leaders, media influencers, and even women's rights advocates sometimes avoid speaking about these issues because they are afraid to be accused of racism or what they call Islamophobia. But we should be always remembering that these young women and girls fled their countries to have a better life here in Europe as equal human beings, and not to be victims of the same ideology that they were forced to endure in their homelands. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Manal, for your comprehensive insight of the situation which is evolving in Afghanistan and in Pakistan and also around the globe. And since you have spoken so much about the women rights violations in Afghanistan and Pakistan, now you can realize that how would be the situation of the women in which are under the administration of Pakistan. So before, now I'm going to invite Mr. Philip de Winter, is the senator of Belgium. And the floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
I didn't prepare any intervention or speech. I'm just interested in the topic. And I had the opportunity to visit many of these countries in the past. And I'm very well aware about the situation and also the threat. Not also only the threat for the local people, for the indigenous people of Afghanistan and of course also Pakistan, of this radical Islam, but also the threat for us as Europeans. And I think the threat for us as Europeans is, well, first of all, the fact that after the defeat of Islamic State in Iraq and in Syria, we now have a new possibility of organizing radical Muslims who are traveling from Europe to, in the past, Syria and Iraq, to be trained by Islamic State, and will now have the possibility to travel to Afghanistan to become radical militants of the Taliban, and also terrorists, international terrorists, who can also be sent to Europe, as we have seen that some years ago with terrorist attacks in Brussels and Paris. That's the first threat, the terrorist threat. The Taliban has money, the Taliban has experience, the Taliban has also the means now to organize those sort of people, to train them. And I think this is a really big threat, and we should be aware of that. And therefore, I'm really concerned about the fact that the European Union and our governments are dealing with the Taliban, are taking the Taliban serious, are talking with them on an official way, organizing trade and that sort of things. I think that's a very bad thing. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't legalize Taliban. We shouldn't officialize them. We shouldn't speak with them. We should boycott them completely. That's the only way we can deal with the Taliban. Of course, there is the question of what should happen with the population. It's a difficult question. How can we help the population of Afghanistan without helping the Taliban? And I'm very well aware that a large majority of the population of Afghanistan is not supporting the Taliban and want to get rid of them. It's always a difficult question. Should we intervene or not? Should we help those groups who are resisting the Taliban? Should we give them money? Should we give them weapons? Should we give them training? We still have to decide about that, but I think on the long run it will be the only possibility to deal with Taliban, because if we don't deal with the Taliban, it will explode, and I mean with exploding that it will also be possible for radical Muslim groups to take over power in other countries, and the Taliban will surely try to do that, and of course, having the means, having the weapons, having the money, having the organization and the structures of a real state, the state of Afghanistan. They are not only an internal threat for Afghanistan, but I think an international threat for the whole free world, for the whole Western world, and certainly for us as Western Europeans. Secondly, you have the situation in Pakistan. For me, it's very clear Pakistan is a terror state. We shouldn't deal with them neither. They are as dangerous as the Taliban. And I think on the long run, there will be an alliance between the Taliban and Pakistan. They will work together. They will use their efforts. They will use their influence to spread radical Islam all over the world. And it's a threat for India. It's a threat for all the countries in the neighborhood, but it's also a threat for us as Europeans, because this is EU today. This is a European conference talking about the possible influence of what's happening over there, over here. And therefore also I'm very well aware that Pakistan is a country that is supporting international terrorism. It happened already many times in the past, and it will happen once again in the future. So also over there, I'm in favor of a complete boycott of Pakistan. Don't treat them as a normal state. They are and will always be a terror state who is involved in international terrorism and who is helping international terrorism to destabilize non-Islamic, non-radical Islamic countries. And therefore, I think, and I heard the lady who said that people who are critical about Islam in Europe are always, well, treated as being racist, Islamophobia, and so on and so on. This is a typical view of countries like Pakistan, who are threatening everybody who says we don't want the Sharia, we don't want radical Islam, we don't want that sort of things over here. Yeah, then you are always immediately a racist or Islamophobe or something similar. I know how it works. It's very easy. If you put the label Islamophobe or racist on somebody, you don't have to talk with him anymore. The discussion is closed. It's very easy in politics to do it this way. But I'm aware of the fact that also in Europe, people are concerned about what's happening over there, because their eyes were opened during the period that Islamic State was in power in the Caliphate in parts of Syria and Iraq. We have seen what happened. We were also attacked by Islamic States here in Brussels, only a few meters away of the International Press Center where you are at the moment. There was a terrorist attack at the metro. There were terrorist attacks on our airport. There were terrorist attacks in France, all over Europe, organized by Islamic States. And we have to be aware that a lot of those people are already over here. There's not only the radicalization of youngsters who became Islamic by conversion, but there are a lot of Pakistanis over here. There are a small amount of Afghanistan people who are sympathizing with the Taliban. Let that be clear. Not the political refugees who came over here in search of protection. We respect them, and we are supporting them. But there are also people who infiltrate into our society. We've seen that with Islamic State, and it will happen again with the Taliban. Maybe they are here already. Our securities forces are telling us in Parliament that we have to be aware and that some of those groups are trying to infiltrate, to commit suicide bombing attacks, to commit terrorist attacks over here in Europe, and with the help of an official government, a Taliban government in Afghanistan, and with the help of a terror state in Pakistan, it will be much easier for them to organize, to be funded, to commit this sort of terrorist attack. So, for me, as a conclusion, it's very simple. First of all, we have the threat of mass immigration once again, because a lot of refugees will come to Europe. They'll seek a better future for themselves and their families here in Europe. They are fleeing from Afghanistan. They are fleeing like they did from Iraq and Syria. And I'm afraid of a third refugee crisis in Europe once again. That's first thing. And the second thing is that we are also afraid, and are very well aware, that the takeover of power in Afghanistan with the help of Pakistan and the installation of a Taliban government is a real big threat, a security threat, a military threat, and terrorist threat for us as Europeans. So we are with those people who are resisting. We are with all of you who are fighting against Taliban and against the terror state of Pakistan. Let that be clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Philip de Winter, for your insight of the entire situation which is evolving in the region and outside of the region as well. I would like to welcome Pashtun Tafa's movement delegation, Mr. Amanullah and Shan Bacha Shinwari. Thank you very much for participating in this conference today. Now I would like to invite a prominent political leader who was eventually expelled from the Pakistani occupied Kashmir, and he was a human rights lawyer in Pakistani occupied Kashmir as well. Mr. Sardar Shaukat Ali Kashmiri, the chairman of United Kashmir People's National Party. Now the floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I would like to thank you, the organizers, and special thanks Mr. Jamil Maksood. He is a renowned human rights defender, but now he is unable to travel around. Ladies and gentlemen, before me, the learned academicians, politicians, human rights defender, and especially the senator, Flams below, he elaborated many important points. Actually, I was in travel. Yesterday, I came to Geneva and participate a big conference on Bangladesh genocide, which was by Pakistan Army. Ladies and gentlemen, it's known fact that all the peoples who lived under Muslim regimes, their basic fundamental rights has been compromised, whether it's Christian, Muslims, Hindus, or any person who belong any religion. But it is unfortunate the whole Muslim rulers, and especially the Pakistan, is propagating the things that there is a Islamophobia. Hundreds and thousands people lived in Europe. They belongs to the Islam, but they did not find any kind of discriminations against them on the basis of religion. Our children, our relatives, our elders, they lived in Europe peacefully and also enjoying equal rights. I did not found any kind of Islamophobia or on the basis of religion, any discrimination in the European countries. But it is the propaganda of Pakistan. And especially the Imran Khan, he used Islamophobia phrase in every forums. It is a false propaganda. I must denounce his finding. Here in Europe, there is no any kind of Islamophobia. But in Pakistan, the Christians, the Hindus, the Buddhists, and the other religious minorities, ethnic minorities have no rights. Even especially the peoples of Kashmir who lived under Pakistan has no democratic rights, have no freedom of opinions. So any country who suppress the right of the peoples and not honor of their faith, he has no right to use such kind of the phrases like Islamophobia. There is no Islamophobia. It is the Muslim rulers actually who suppress the rights of their own people, and women have no space. They are facing worse kind of discriminations. On the other hand, it is the Pakistan and some of the Muslim countries who used religion as tool and terrorism as foreign policy. Like in Afghanistan, since 1971, it was Pakistan who formulated a strategy to put their own proxies in Afghanistan as a religious government. And there are many ups and downs because Pakistan has feared that the progressive nationalist Pashtuns or Baloch are the democratic, those people who believe democratic ideals and struggling for democracy in Pakistan, struggling against the discriminatory laws and draconian laws and all the old system. Ultimately, when the state suppressions put pressure on those activists, they crossed the border and took refuge in Afghanistan. So it is the Pakistan who have dual policies because the Durand line, the peoples, the Pashtun peoples who lived on the other side of Durand line, it was, you people know, it was a treaty. It was actually the captured areas, occupied areas by the British. And historically, it is part and parcel of the Afghanistan. Afghan nation was independent, but there are many wars in Cold War era or in early 18th or 19th century. So there was one treaty, and that treaty was expired in 1993. And Pakistan, since many years, actually try to appease many religiously motivated peoples in Afghanistan, and especially the students who provide many facilities in Pakistani, and give them the admissions, and ISI manage them. And it is in the mind of Pakistan's to put a government in Afghanistan like a POK, Pakistan Occupied Kashmir governments, which has no say. It is the Pakistani policy, and unfortunately, the whole Afghan nation is suffering due to these policies of Pakistan. They are promoting and projecting the terrorist groups, religious motivated extremist groups, and especially both the region, Afghans and Kashmir, they are suffering due to the terrorist policies of Pakistan. In our areas, the terrorist infrastructure is still intact, and Pakistan used them. And our area, which is known as Azad Kashmir, actually it is not Azad, it is very much occupied by Pakistan, used as launching pad for the terrorist activities on the other part of Kashmir. And interestingly, you people observe how much the Baloch facing, hundreds and thousands people are missing in Pakistan, missing by the state, kidnapped by the states, and they have no fair trials. And ultimately, the Taliban governments, it is not only the Taliban government, it is behind the ISI and Pakistani military. They fought with the Taliban under the banner of Taliban and captured whole Afghanistan. Now, it is the Pakistan who actually dictate the policies of the Afghan Taliban. And it is unfortunate, it is the fear of whole regions because the Taliban have no face. They are not responsible people in any constitutional forum or international forum like United Nations or world community. So all the terrorist groups operating in the region is linked with Taliban, and Taliban providing them a base camp in Afghanistan, got training and got all the facilities, and ultimately they launched them in different areas. But the unfortunate side is the world community, United States. When United States invaded in Afghanistan in 2002. At that time, it was the prime responsibility of the world community to establish the infrastructure. But when Doha negotiations with the Taliban, it is a great mistake by the United States and all those negotiators who undermine the Ashraf Ghani governments and the civil society and the women rights or Afghan situations. And in history, United States withdrew and NATO also, and they did not even feel that 20 years we are living here, and still the infrastructure of Afghans who protect the life, liberty, and the property of the Afghan people should be protected. But now there is mess. There is a gross human rights violation, especially the women have no any rights, even right to get education or go to street. Taliban imposed very strict impositions in the Afghan women and those peoples who actually associates with the human rights organization or liberal ideals. Now they are facing worst kind of persecutions. Now it is the duty, the world community, and especially the influential countries who can put pressure on Pakistan and ask them to put pressure on Afghanistan, because the Taliban is not an independent force. And now the United States also declared that it is Pakistan who provides shelters, harbor them, and finance them. So it is known to all that it is Pakistan who installed Taliban. And Taliban, one thing we should more understand, that it is not one entity. There are many groups under the umbrella of Taliban, in the guise of Taliban. And their credential is promote religious extremism. And although it is debatable whether they are true representative of the religion or they have derived a narrative in the 13th and 12th century. So it is debatable. All the secular Muslims or moderate Muslims did not subscribe the ideology of Taliban. But their regimes, like in Pakistan, the establishment and the Pakistani government, in Saudi Arabia and everywhere, you can find they are always providing all kind of assistance to those who are extremist, radical, and militant, because they don't want that civil society can emerge and independently build a narrative for the democracy, for secularism, for the people, and every kind of discrimination. That's why the rulers, the Muslim rulers, they are not ready to give the democratic rights to their own peoples, but they are always propagating and abusing world community and the other religions. So at this point, when the terrorism and extremism is spreading in the name of Taliban, we should formulate a strategy. World community should formulate a strategy how to combat this and how to stop them for spreading extremism and terrorism. Actually, I tender my apology because I prepared some notes, and unfortunately it is at my residence, and I am in Geneva. So I cannot graduate you in the context of today's title, but I must pay my gratitude to all those who actually before spoke to the conference, their findings, their narratives regarding today's conference is absolutely right, and I endorse and agree with their finding. I thank you very much. Thank you for Jamil Maqsood and the organizers, Sajjad, Sajid Abbasi, and other participants. I thank you very much again.
Thank you for Jamil Maqsood. Thank you for organizing this this conference at, of course, a very timely time. First of all, I would like to also express my support and sympathies to you for the fact that you are, of course, restricted in your activities because of the revocation of your passport. I've been told that you have you're fighting this case legally in the Islamabad High Court, and I'm sure that it will be taken to its logical conclusion, and we can then meet you again in places like Geneva, where we raise these issues. Well, thank you to all the speakers. I think everyone has made very valid points. Mr. Shaukat Kashmiri spoke about Islamophobia, so I will not touch that topic. I think he has elaborated that in a very, very good way. I will mainly focus a little bit on what has been told as the title of this conference is Growing Extremism in the Region, of course, after the Taliban has taken over. What I do find necessary to say here is that after so many years, it seems that Europe has still not learned its lessons, because the thing is that Taliban is not a new phenomena. Taliban was in power in 1996. Taliban started emerging in Pakistan in the end of the 80s, in the beginning of the 90s, and it came out as a powerful group controlling almost 90% of Afghanistan in 1996. And except for some statements made by European countries about human rights and women's rights in Afghanistan, and also in the US, not much was done. Afghanistan was left to the Taliban from 1996 until 2001, until 9/11 happened. It took 9/11 for Europe and the West to wake up, and then it was too late. So now 20 years later, of course, the senator and others have expressed their views about fears of terrorism growing in the region and also in Europe. But will Europe sit silent again? Will it wait for another 9/11? It shouldn't. What needs to be, Europe could learn from the experiences we Kashmiris have. And maybe Europe could step in before it hits places like Brussels and Paris and Amsterdam. Maybe history can teach us a lesson, because I said it a few days ago in the UN as well. Soviets left Afghanistan somewhere in 1989. And in 1989, a terrorist group like the Hizbul Mujahideen was founded. In 1987, Lashkar-e-Toiba was founded in Pakistan. And all these groups imposed terrorism, death and destruction on us Kashmiris, especially the Kashmiris living in the Indian administered part of Jammu and Kashmir. And like earlier was said by Mr. Shaukat Kashmiri, is that the Pakistan administered part of Kashmir was used as a launching pad. And nobody cared. No European stood up in the 1990s. No American stood up in the 1990s telling the world or telling the powers to be that the Kashmiris are being killed by intelligence agencies in Pakistan by using proxies as terror organizations. So I think the West can learn from our experiences. And since the last 30 years, the average Kashmiri has been fighting terrorism, has been demanding their rightful rights, their rightful human rights, while trying to disassociate itself from this imposed agenda exported from Rawalpindi and Islamabad. And now the fear is again the same, because then it was the Soviets who left. Now it's the Americans who have left. So where will these terrorists go? And of course, I understand the concerns of the people sitting in Brussels, but Brussels is very far away. The Kashmiris have the first fears. The people living in Indian administered Kashmir, the people living in places in Pakistan, the people living in India, the people living in Afghanistan, those are the first targets. And we fear that because of the fact that the Pakistan military establishment would not like these terrorist groups to destabilize Pakistan itself, that history will repeat itself and these people will be rerouted to Kashmir again in order to, like they did in the 80s, in the end of the 80s, by, their mantra of bleeding India with 1,000 cuts, of so-called trying to liberate Kashmir from infidels, all these mantras which they have used for terrorist organizations and to befool the international community and the Kashmiris itself. So we are the first line of in the first line of fire before they come to Europe. Recently, there was a statement by the Taliban spokesman who said that the Taliban has the right to speak about all Muslims, including Kashmir. We have nothing to do with the Taliban. We don't share anything with them. And I think the majority of the Afghans don't share anything with them. But this again is going to be imposed on the Kashmiri people. And I think that the best protection Europe and the West can do to protect itself is stand with the people, the democratic, secular forces in the region, especially in the conflict zones like Jammu and Kashmir, who oppose terrorism, who oppose the Taliban, because that is your best protection. You cannot build walls around Brussels and Paris. The only thing you need to do is to support those people in these regions to build walls to keep this terrorism out of their lands. That is where we need the help of the Western community and the Western people, because you want to prevent terrorism from taking root. You don't want to cure a terrorist attack, because then you're already too late. It has happened. So what we want from you, from powers to be, is to keep highlighting the fact that today the Taliban has taken over. It is a force to be reckoned with. It is supported by the benefactor next door, the state of Pakistan. It is supported by the military establishment. It is now almost fully in power. And when we hear things about we must not recognize them, yeah, we legitimize them with the Doha talks. We legitimize them by making a peace deal with a terrorist organization. Nobody, the Afghan government of Ashraf Ghani was sidelined. Nobody asked Ghani anything. Eventually, he had to flee. But it can't be this. This can't be the reality that the West has legitimized the Taliban on the Afghan people and are now talking about not accepting them and boycotting them. I think that's not going to the root of the cause. I think what you need to do is you need to sanction. You need to use punitive measures against states who sponsor terrorism. Boycotting the Taliban and not working together with them, I don't know whether that's the right decision. I think we need to keep engaging with democratic and secular forces in Afghanistan. We need to keep working for women's rights. We need to keep working for human rights there. And at the same time, we need to look at the root cause. And the root cause is the mindset of the military establishment sitting in Rawalpindi. And maybe it's now time to use punitive leverages against such countries who support terrorism and who use it as a state policy in order to gain strategic depth or, to safeguard their strategic interest in the region. That will not only help Europe, that will also help the Kashmiri people and make it more clearer to the world that the Kashmiris are fighting for their rights and they are not terrorists, because our whole rights movement have been hijacked by imposing terrorism on us. So what we really need to look at now is move forward from just condemning and words. We need to sanction. We need to, the FATF has put the state of Pakistan on a grey list for so many years because it's being protected by its elder brother China in the FATF. Well, we need to move forward from there. They need to maybe be blacklisted. We need to establish commissions or maybe investigative committees who look into how it's possible that with trillions of dollars, with the mightiest armed forces in the world, how is it possible that the Taliban came back 20 years later? That cannot have. No terrorist organization can support itself for a long time until and unless it is supported and nourished by a state. A terrorist organization needs money, needs weapons. Where do they get it from? Nobody can support paying their bills if you don't have a job. No terrorist organization can flourish this way unless and until it has a state backing them. And that is the root cause. So that is where we need to move towards, while also acknowledging the fact that there are other sufferers apart from the Afghan. The Afghan people have been suffering for 40 years. The Kashmiri people have been suffering for 75 years. The first terrorist attack in the region was the invasion of Jammu and Kashmir. And since then, we have been looking towards it. For the West, maybe the first terrorist attack was 9/11. Well, that's 50 years after 1947. Since then, we have been bearing the brunt in the region of these terrorists. And now it's the time for the world to also stand apart from the Afghans, to also stand with the people of Kashmir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Junaid Qureshi, for your comprehensive statement on the contemporary political and security situation evolving around the region and around the globe. And you have rightly endorsed the point that we were the first victim of a proxy war, which was started and inflicted on us in 1947. Now I would like to invite Mr. Nasser Aziz Khan, is central spokesperson of United Kashmir People's National Party. The floor is yours, sir, now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good day, respected panelists and participants. I congratulate Comrade Jamil Maqsood and Sajid Hussain organizing such an important event on important topic. Entire world is concerned and talking about the situation and what is happening in Afghanistan. And everybody is concerned that possible spillover of extremism and terrorism will affect not only the South Asian region, but entire world. First of all, we would have to understand that Taliban, radical Islam, this extremism, terrorism is an ideology which was systematically promoted by Pakistan and some other Islamic states. As we know that in late 70s, Pakistan and other Islamic countries gathered extremist and terrorist groups across the globe. They used them against Soviet Union. Then Soviet Union withdraw from Afghanistan. These groups were fighting with each other. They gained power in 1996. And at that time, Pakistan said that we brought like-minded people in power. And they were glorifying that Taliban are our assets. In an interview with BBC, Pervez Musharraf, military dictator of Pakistan, said that Taliban, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Lashkar-e-Jangvi, and all extremist groups, they are our assets, and we can use them against any country or in any part of the world. We know that Pakistan has been playing a double game with international community. On the one hand, she said that she is the ally on war on terror of US and NATO. But on the other hand, she was supporting these Al-Qaeda groups, Taliban, and all other extremist groups. Ahsanullah Ahsan, Taliban spokesperson, he was captured. He was in military custody, and he was given facility to give live interviews to mainstream media of Pakistan for 2 to 3 hours. And ultimately, he escaped from custody. And nobody is talking about, because in Pakistan, there is strict restrictions on freedom of expression, media is under threat, newspapers, they are facing worst type of harassment. Nobody can dare to speak about the rule of law in the country against these extremist groups. When Taliban came into power again in 15 August 2021, and Pakistani sitting minister, defense analysts, and other groups, they are glorifying them, and they are saying that we defeated United States and NATO in Afghanistan, and Taliban came into power, and this is our great victory. Pakistani Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said that we are seriously thinking to give amnesty to all Taliban groups, TTP Pakistan, and Taliban who are in power now in Afghanistan. Western countries, NATO, United States, they must consider it seriously, because Pakistan is always still promoting, and these all Talibans who are in power in Afghanistan, they got education from this radical and extremist ideology from Pakistani madrasas, especially from Al-Qaeda Connections, and they taught them hatred, and they are still teaching them hatred. And in state of Jammu and Kashmir, there are banned extremist groups. They are freely roaming, and they are interlinked with Taliban and extremist groups. Now they are stretching their muscles and they are glorifying Taliban's victory in Afghanistan. And we have fear that Pakistan might start another proxy war in state of Jammu and Kashmir. One can understand that Amarat-e Islami Afghanistan flag were hoisted in Red Mosque in Islamabad, and state and police was silent. On 19 August is the National Day of the Afghan people, and they were celebrating their National Day in Peshawar. But police forced to hoist their flag, national flag, and they snatched flags from these people, Afghan people who were celebrating their national independence day. It shows that Pakistan is promoting radical groups and they are trying to victimize every secular, progressive Afghan, every person who is living in South Asia, who is believe in peace, humanity, and coexistence. They are under threat due to the policies of Pakistan. International community should intervene because United States and NATO pledged billions of dollars to Pakistan to fight on terror. Pakistan was saying that she is supporting NATO and United States, but this is an open secret that Bin Laden was hiding in Abbottabad, only a few hundred meters away from the military academy. In a 4-floor building, more than a dozen children, 2-3 wives, servants, and Pakistan said that they were unaware that Bin Laden is hiding here. Many other Taliban top leaders, they were eliminated on Pakistani soil. And if we read the books of the ex-military men of Pakistan and many other writers, right-wingers, they openly claiming that we supported Taliban, we created them, we support them, and we will continue our support to them. I will not much time. I am very grateful to all of you for your comprehensive presentation. Everybody spoke very well on this topic, and we, the people of state of Jammu and Kashmir, expect that international community will intervene in this matter and make Pakistan accountable and ask Pakistan to stop promoting and exporting terrorism in the region. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nasir Aziz Khan, for talking so loudly and comprehensively on all aspects. Now, I would also like to inform you that today is the 3rd anniversary of our late Senior Vice Chairperson, Madam Naila Khanin. She was a very strong and brave party leader. She died on 30th of September 2018 after falling a short illness. The United Kashmir People's National Party is paying glowing tribute for her courageous struggle to organize party in the length and breadth of Pakistani occupied Kashmir and also in the various cities of Pakistan where Kashmiris are domiciled. And she was a very staunch supporter of women's rights, child rights, and she was against all sorts of discrimination, whether it is based on religion, on culture, on languages, on ethnicities. And she has been standing with the Pakistani minorities group, ethnic groups in Rawalpindi and in Islamabad, and has been a part of progressive polity of Kashmiris and the people of Jammu and Kashmir living in Pakistan as well. So we are paying a rich tribute for her courageous struggle, her work across the region. And she was an icon among the women political activists in the area. The women from even the pro-Pakistani groups were very close to her, and they keep admiring her courageous stance for the unification of the state of Jammu and Kashmir and for the inception of fundamental human rights especially infringed under the occupation of Pakistan. So now I would like to invite Mr. Sajid Hussain, is the Secretary Information for the United Kashmir People's National Party. Europe Zone, the floor is yours now. Thank you. Hello.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm grateful to the leadership of UK PMP and EU today, which has taken a timely initiative to discuss the rising threat of extremism in South Asia with very diverse and distinguished panel. When we discuss rising threat of extremism in South Asia, this is very important to know root causes of extremism in South Asia. The partition of British India on the basis of religion and two-nation theory is the root cause of extremism in South Asia. The state of Jammu and Kashmir was officially founded on 16th of March, 1846 under the Treaty of Amritsar between Maharaja Gulab Singh and the British East India Company. Jammu Kashmir was one of the largest princely states outside of British India. The Governor General of Pakistan has signed standstill agreement with the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir on 12 August 1947. Pakistan started a military expedition in Jammu and Kashmir under Operation Gulmerg in Jammu and Kashmir and Operation Datta Khail in Gilgit-Baltistan. The tribesmen were equipped, trained and transported by Pakistani military, invaded in Jammu and Kashmir on 22nd of October 1947. Those who entered overstayed start indiscriminate killing of innocent people. India and Pakistan fought 3 wars over the Jammu and Kashmir in 1947 and 1965 and a limited conflict in 1919. The people of Jammu and Kashmir has been suffering from conflict for the last 6 decades, and terrorism and extremism emerged as a result of this conflict. The Taliban has taken over almost all of the Afghanistan and is flexing its muscles for global legitimacy. Despite continued international pressure, the Taliban has so far failed to appoint any women in their cabinet. Their failure to do so exacerbate concern about significant deterioration in women's rights under the new regime. Especially after the new government announced that secondary school would resume for male students only, while claiming that female students will be able to return in the near future. No public explanation has been provided for why girls have been prevented from resuming their education. In addition, the majority of women in the public sector have not been allowed to return to the work. Our main concern is that their rule in Afghanistan may affect the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. Many international experts apprehended that Taliban may fuel terror activities in Jammu and Kashmir by sending its fighter or by training Pakistani mercenaries. Some leaders of Pakistan's ruling party have also said on television that the Taliban would come warmly welcome the Taliban come and fight. Taliban would come and fight for them in J&K. The Taliban who released from prison in Afghanistan have been warmly welcomed by the religious and extremists in POK. However, there are extremist elements in Pakistan who are fueling terrorism in Kashmir purely for personal interest. These elements are closely connected to Pakistan's ISI as well as their army. They may resort to recruit of fresh cadres from Kashmiri students and residents of Pakistani occupied Kashmir. Also, various terror organizations like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed have well-established recruitment cells in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, from where they have been recruiting terrorists in past too. Pakistan may utilize the support of Taliban in training terror recruits and later push them in Jammu and Kashmir. The United States Department, US State Department listed 3 Islamic groups activities in Kashmir as a foreign terrorist organization: Harkatul Mujahideen, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba. Pakistan premier intelligence service, inter-service intelligence of arming, training, and providing logistical support to militants in Kashmir. The Al-Qaeda Connections. Many terrorist activities in Kashmir received training in the same madrasas or Muslim seminaries where Taliban and Al-Qaeda fighters studied. And some received military training at camps in Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. Leader of some of these terror groups also have Al-Qaeda connections. The long-term time leader of Harkat al-Mujahideen group, Fazlur Rahman Khalil, signed Al-Qaeda 1998 declaration of holy war with which called on Muslims to attack all Americans and all their allies. Maulana Masood Azhar, who founded the Jaish-e-Mohammed organization, traveled to Afghanistan several times to meet Osama bin Laden. Azhar group is suspected of receiving funding, Al-Qaeda US official says. In 2006, Al-Qaeda claimed to have established a wing in Kashmir. Two phases of terrorism in the name of religion. Religion is used for the instigation of terrorism by two sets of actors in Pakistan. The two sets are somewhat interrelated but show certain differences with respect to their objectives, areas of cooperation, and targets of violence. First, there are sectarian group belonging to Sunnis and Shia sect of Islam that are active in terror activities, which are mostly but not exclusively directly against the people from the opposite sect. The Sunni militant organization call for Pakistan to be declared a Sunni state, while Shias fight for specific political fight or to safeguard their distinct status. The second set of actors are Sunnis jihadi group that were considered by the government of Pakistan up to 2001 as strategic tools to be used in Afghanistan and in Jammu and Kashmir as well. Many of the jihadi group that were active in Jammu and Kashmir in insurgency after Afghan jihad, Deobandi, that have become the most important in connection with terrorism and that also have significant interconnections. Effect of terrorism. So the rising level of violence have been proved a difficult challenge of people of Jammu and Kashmir. Ironically, far from being able to scare civilians against terror attacks, the police force itself is particularly vulnerable to attack by well-trained and highly motivated terrorists. Social disorder, instability have been the result, adversely affecting the economy of the country. Over the years, however, the effect was to change the whole context of insurgency from freedom struggle to jihad, and the pro-freedom insurgents indigenous movement become marginalized and comparison with the jihadi group that support Kashmir and accession to Pakistan. Among the group that are active in insurgency, the most important are Hizbul Mujahideen, Harkat al-Mujahideen, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Lashkar-e-Taiba. Due to international pressure, extremist organization in Pakistan can be diverted into a social work in the name of Islam rather than of jihad. This is the new form of rising threat of extremism in South Asia in the name of social work, particularly in Pakistan and its Jammu and Kashmir. Dear friends, I would like to draw your attention to an important issue that the people, the citizens of the state of Jammu and Kashmir are facing and are being affected by these acts of criminals and rascals. The citizens of the state of Jammu and Kashmir travel from Kashmir to Pakistan or from Pakistan to Kashmir via Tyndall Court Road. Then their vehicles are looted with the force of a gun. During their journey, they are killed, they are beaten, they are abused, and they are injured, they are tortured. And this attitude is intolerable. Pakistan has completely failed to protect the citizens of Jammu and Kashmir during the journey, and all the criminals are roaming around freely and openly, and all the people who commit the crime are not punished. We urge upon the international community and all international organizations to take cognizance and put pressure to Pakistan to resolve the issue and ensure safety, security, and dignity of the citizens of the state of Jammu and Kashmir and protect their life, liberty, and property. And at last, a tribute to Naila Hanan. Naila Hanan was a leader of UK PMP, and she was a precious asset of United Kashmir People's National Party. She rendered invaluable service for the mission of United States of Jammu and Kashmir. Her name would be remembered. She was committed to Her work hand was a thorough gentlewoman. She has spreaded the UKPMP ideology and conveyed the message of UKPMP across the world, particularly in Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir. She was the symbol of resistance movement of UKPMP between 2012 to 2018 and left deep impression of her commitment and hard work, including leadership abilities. She was very brave and paragon of action and sincerity with UKPMP's struggle for the united and independent Jammu and Kashmir. She will be remembered as a committed leader of UKPMP. She will be remembered for the anti-establishment role she played in agitating for political, economic, social, culture, and women's rights and democracy. Her energy and lifelong dedication to improve the life and livelihood of people of Jammu and Kashmir will continue to inspire generation of the young people around the world. We all pay our rich tribute to her. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sajid Hussain, elaborating various aspects and how the growing menace of terrorism is affecting life, liberty of the people in the region, and particularly under the illegal occupation of Pakistan. I would like to share one important news that came from the region 2 days before. There are few refugees camps in Pakistani occupied Kashmir. The people who were migrated during this proxy war and death and destruction game after 90s from Indian administrated part to Pakistani occupied Kashmir. And now the security establishment is using them again, and 2 men, namely Tanveer Bhatt and Zarar Khan, who were given arms and ammunition to transport them to Indian administrated Kashmir. So they were apprehended at the border and eventually they were killed in the firing. So we are requesting international community to take this cognizance, since Pakistan and its security agencies and military forces and extremist groups are inspired by the Taliban takeover of Kabul. Now they are pushing these people who were migrated from Indian part to Pakistani part to go back and to play a role of a guide, or to play a role of a porter for them to take arms, money, illegal SIMs, which are registered in Pakistan, but they can be easily used in India for terrorism activities. So this is a very alarming situation which is evolving in our region. Now I would like to invite once again Sardar Shaukat Ali Kashmiri to pay tribute to Madam Naila Khanin Saiba on her 3rd anniversary. The floor is yours, son.
I thank you again, all of you. It was a wonderful deliberation of all speakers and shed light on the current situation of our regions. No doubt, our region is under attack. Attacked by extremists, attacked by radical groups and terrorists. Anyhow, it is the duty of the regional governments to combat and eliminate all those extremist views which is prevailing in our society. Mr. Chairman, Madam Naila Khani was a great lady. She leads the rights movement of the Kashmiri people, irrespective what's their color, creed, and religion. She was not a narrow nationalist, she was an internationalist and believed in internationalism and fight for the rights of not only the Kashmiri peoples, but she stood with the Baloch victims, she stood with Pashtun, nationalist and progressive people, and all over the world. Her ideals was progressive, liberal, democratic, and anti-colonialism. Although we, the people of Kashmir, is facing colonial era's policies, it is the colonial policies to divide and rule, and ultimately to create the conflicts and serve these conflicts to their weapon industry. And now we again actually facing those policies which was formulated in Cold War era, and we are the first victim of the Cold War era policies, and still that policies is continue in our areas. And it is the Naila Khanin. She stood against all those policies which was based on terrorism, extremism, communalism, and also discriminatory and draconian laws. And I must pay a tribute to her sacrifices. And of course, we missed her lot. She remained in our heart and minds. And all United Kashmir People's National Party workers, and especially those who internationally struggling for the rights of the people, international human rights defenders, they also paid tribute to the sacrifices of Naila Khanin, and she was our leader, and she still remains in our heart and mind. I thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have hold a very wonderful conference, and I must pay a gratitude to your efforts. I thank you again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Sadar Shaukat Ali Kashmiri Sahab. Now the floor is open, and we have some friends here. If you have any question, you can raise a question in Urdu language or in English as you feel comfortable, or if you want to say something, you are also invited to express your views.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have just from long time.
Sardar Nasir Aziz Khan hath khada hai.
Thank you, sir. That's okay.
आप अनम्यूट करें ना.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Just I want to go to past about the Pashtun region. There is one province in Pakistan, in the one country in Afghanistan, there is majority is Pashtun. Before the 79, 78, our Pashtun was 100% secular people. Our tradition, there is no militant, there is no religion like now. Just the Pakistan relation with America. When he make the program with European also. He make the program with against the Soviet Union. And he bring the Mullaism, the terrorism. He opened the madrasa, the school, for the terrorism and for the religion. Who refund the money for this? Just America, Europe, and he sponsored this. Now we, all region is going to where? To the war. Who inject the terrorism there? Just America and Europe support this and inject this area. Now we demand, okay, this was war with the two, capitalism and the socialism. Okay, this is the past. Now we request to the Europe and to the America to de-inject this madrasa this school of terrorism. And we should request, we are request to this community, the West community, to de-inject this, the terrorists. We should become the normal people. We don't live there, the normal people. There is the many group. Explain our Kashmiri friend, there is many group in who support that. Just we request to the Western community, the Western people, to de-inject, to we become the normal that we was before in 1977, 78. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ramanullah, for your question and comments. And I would like Mr. Andy to respond to your question. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for your comment, because this is really interesting comments. I know United States and Europe, before they fueled the Taliban, they fueled also the madrasas before. This was a policy against the Soviet Union. I know that the Pashtuns have suffered a lot also. Sometimes they don't have the right to talk their own language. Sometimes they get papers from the Afghan state, they don't get it in their own language. I think we should support the struggle of the Pashtun. And it's true that before the Pashtun were a secular movement, they became an Islamic movement because of the support of the ancient leaders of United States and also with the still little support of Europe also. But before, if we talk about the Taliban, they were always fueled by Europe and United States, if we think about it. Because before the Taliban became in power now, they were fueling the drugs, the opium before. They were in support of the opium. So they always had the money. And if you have the money, you can come in power. It's as easy as that. So they always had the power. This opium is needed by the Western countries. They need it in their hospitals. They need it in the United States. They need it everywhere. So actually, we had before, we were still supporting this Taliban. It doesn't look like this, but before they were supported already because they got the power to have this opium, and we need it in the whole of the world. So Afghanistan is really important. So I understand what you're saying, and it's a fault of the past. They made big disasters, and the big disaster in Afghanistan that we always had foreign powers occupying Afghanistan, and they are still occupied now. They are still occupied. When the Pakistan government was involved in creating this new Taliban government, we had the boss of IC who was there in forming this new Taliban government. So they are always occupied by foreign states. There should be free elections in Afghanistan. There should be a free democratic party system in Afghanistan. But there is always this powers from abroad who want to get Pakistan, who want to get Afghanistan. Next to that, we also have these important copper mines in Afghanistan. They are the most important copper mines in the world. There is nowhere such a big copper mine field anywhere in the world. Afghanistan is needed for that. So there are also foreign powers fighting to get the support of the Afghanistan new leadership to get these copper mines. And we see China is doing a lot. Taliban already said that they wouldn't do anything against the Uyghur movements, the Uyghur repression, because they will be supported by China. So we see also the China-Pakistan economic corridor. So we see we will have this big investments of China into the thing. So I'm afraid that we will still fuel, other powers will fuel this Taliban movements. And I'm afraid for the future of Afghanistan. Because if they don't have free elections, I think there will be, the problems will stay because they will stay occupied, not by the United States, but by Pakistan now.
Thank you very much for your response to Mr. Rahmanullah Khan. So any one of you, if you have any question, comments?
زه خو ټول ناول رحمان الله نه مننه کوم چې زه د کانفرنس ته دعوت کړم او دلته د ځان سره راوستم. د افغانستان مسله داسې ده چې د امریکا او اروپا ټول هیوادونه چې کوم دي دوی په افغانستان کې یوه داسې خونړۍ لوبه وکړه چې هم یې څه د پاسه 6 میلیونه افغانان ووژل او هم یې اوس افغانستان خلک او افغانستان یوازې پرېښوده. نه طالبان د اپیمو نه سوپر پاور جوړ شوی دی او نه طالبان سوپر پاور وو او نه دی. دا د امریکې او د ناټو میشتو هیوادونو د پاکستان په ملاتړ باندې د طالبانو نه سوپر پاور جوړ کړی نن سبا.
I say thank you to everyone. And he said there is a 6 million Afghan killed in this war in last 40 years. And now he cannot become a power with the fame or drugs. In the European and America, the Afghan live alone in this war, and we were suffer many 6 million people killed in this war from against Soviet Union until now.
خبره ډیره واضحه ده. د افغانستان ټول خلک په دې پوهیږي چې امریکا او اروپا میشتو هیوادونو په افغانستان کې کومه لوبه وکړه. دا که د چین سره جګړه ده یا د روس سره جنګ او جګړه وه، دا د دوی د مفادو لپاره په پټه باندې د طالبانو سره د دوحې مذاکرات شروع کړه او افغان دولت چې جوړ کړی هم دوی وو، هم دوی په تاوان هم کړی و، ډېرې پیسې پې لګولې وې، خو د افغان دولت یې بېخبره پرېښوده. د طالبانو سره یې د پاکستان په ترو ډایرکټ خبرې وکړې، کېناسته ورسره او افغانستان یو ځلې بیا د تباهۍ او بربادۍ کندې ته ور وغورځو.
He said that he said that we were killed for the capitalism, like that, for the system of the CPEC with the China and the European Union and America talk with without government Afghani. Just talk with him and he leave the government Afghani alone. And we know the America and Europe play with us just for the something, but he don't think for humanity. Just he play the game for the CPEC or for some opportunity.
او د افغانستان خلک اوس پوهیږي چې دا جګړه د چا وه او امریکا او ناټو میشتو هیوادونو ولې د افغانستان سره دومره خطرناکه لوبه وکړه.
He asked why the world play with us like that and they live alone. They live alone us in Afghanistan. And he support like Taliban something.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very tough question that why did they play with the Afghani people? I think this is interests of the United States, interests of the Soviet Union, interests of different parts of the world that they played with the people. But it also was always funded. The wars were always funded because you can't make war without funding. Somebody said here that terrorists cannot play a role without state funding. There was always state funding. There was an Afghan ISIS organization who was funded by the former Afghanistan government. And there was also the real ISIS. So you always have this funded wars there. And one of the most important things that they don't say in public is this resources that are still there in Afghanistan. That's one of the most important things, that they want these resources because the world is in need of these resources. So that's one of the things. So I'm really a pity for all the Afghani people that they always had to suffer, that they always had to live in war. They never had, in the last 20 years, they never had the time without war. They are used to live in this kind of war, in this kind of thing. And now they are a victim again. And until There is no free system in Afghanistan. There is no free elections. There is no dinkus. It will stay like this. The Afghans should take the power in their hands. And a lot of people think that the Taliban, as a nationalist movement, is already giving the power to the Afghans. But that's the problem. A lot of people are unaware that they are supported by Pakistan. So that's one of the themes. So another reason is that they use Afghanistan to fund terrorism. They use Afghanistan before the Al-Haqqani network. Everybody was formed by them. They were sending terror cells around the world. This was actually the education camp of terror cells in the world. We were only aware about this. Oh, I think a lot of intelligence services were aware of before, but we, as the world community, were only aware about this after 11 September. Before we were not aware, and it's a pity. And I want to say sorry to all the people of Afghanistan that they have to live in this sort of circumstances. I really feel a pity for these people, for the women, for the children, for everybody who lost somebody in this last 20 years and before. I really feel a pity for the Afghan people because they were always used as a chess game against each other. There was always done this with these people. I really feel sorry. And I want, on behalf of me as a human rights activist for Post Versa, excuse me for what happened with the Afghani people all this time. We can never, we can never excuse these governments who've done all this suffering to all the Afghani people. But we have to see that there will come new suffering. There will come new economic exploitation from China into Afghanistan. You will see this. So this is happening already. They are making deals already. So the people of Afghanistan will be sold again to China now. So China and Pakistan playing a big role there. So they are always in this big war between world powers. So I'm sorry for all the people of Afghanistan that they had to suffer so much and that they still have to suffer now. I'm sorry for that.
Yes, now.
Thank you so much for your questions. And as Mr. Andy said, so we show solidarity with you, we support you, and we believe that we need to support what the EU and the US should do is supporting the democratic and the secular forces and supporting women, especially because this is the values of Europe, is supporting human rights, women's rights, freedom of speech. And actually, former mayor of Afghanistan, Mrs. Zarifa Ghaffari, was visiting France last week, I mean, a few weeks ago, and she was supported also by the mayor of France, the mayor of Paris. I believe we need to support these people, these secular forces, these women, these leaders. And as Andy said, people believe that this is the Taliban takeover, the Taliban took power, and this is what people have chosen. No, this is not what the Afghani people have chosen. They didn't vote for extremist people, and as you said, the Afghani people are not extremists, but this is it was a process of radicalization. So what the US and the EU should do is to work on de-radicalization in Afghanistan and in these areas, because this is what we need to do to prevent happening terrorist attacks here in Europe or everywhere in the world. So we need to work together on de-radicalization, human rights, women's rights without frontiers, freedom of speech, and support the secular forces. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. If any speaker is left, let me check who is online. Who is there? Okay, so I would like to give floor to Mr. Nasser Aziz Khan for his final remarks, please. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add a few points. Actually, when Hamid Karzai was the Prime Minister, President of Afghanistan, He had support from US and NATO. And people were calling that he is the mayor of Kabul. He is not the president of Afghanistan, but he sustained because he got aerial and ground support from United States and NATO. What happened now recent with Ashraf Ghani government, when they start talk in Doha, Ashraf Ghani government were given a list of 5,500 top extremist Taliban leaders, and they were forced to release these extremists from the jails, from different jails in Afghanistan. And things rapidly changed when they were released, and they start capturing Afghanistan. And second thing, there was the biometric devices. US was collecting data of Afghan people, and especially those who were working with United States and NATO. And when US left Afghanistan in hurry, they left these devices there. They left sophisticated weapons in the hands of Taliban, and now Pakistan and China, they are getting these weapons on very, like, they are spending pennies to get these sophisticated weapons. Question arises, if US and NATO was the ally of Afghan government, they should consult with them. They should not force them to release these extremist groups. And we stand with common Afghan people. We extend our solidarity to every secular, progressive Afghan person, especially women and girls who are the victim of radical and extremist policies of Taliban in Pakistan. It is the prime responsibility of United States and NATO to undo their mistakes, what they did in recent past. What happened in late 80s, 90s, that is the past. Many things has happened, but what they did recently in Doha and after this rapid capture of Afghanistan, fall of Kabul, they should consider it seriously and play their role to protect common Afghan people who are the victim of terrorism and extremism. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Before ending this conference today, I would like to present a few of resolutions for your kind attention. These are the resolutions came from Pakistani administered Kashmir and from the various organizations representing the Kashmiri diaspora, and also from the United Kashmir People's Nation Party and Jammu Kashmir International People's Alliance. So I would like to present the first resolution. Kashmir studies must be taught at schools as it is enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, that the students must be taught their local history, culture, poetry, and everything surrounded around their native homeland. So it is the basic right of every child under the administration of Pakistan to study the history of his and her native region. We reiterate that every ply shall be countered to divide Jammu and Kashmir on religious lines. Restrictions on media, journalists, academia, human rights activists, and especially online propaganda must be discouraged. All such human rights abusers should be criminalized who openly eulogize extremism and terrorism online. Local parties elections must be held in Pakistan administered Kashmir, and women must be given 33% representation as per the law. State subject law in Gilgit-Baltistan must be revived, and the land rights of the people must be recognized as disputed region. Various reports of land grabbing by Pakistani military in Pakistan administered Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan are very much disturbing, and such activities of the military must be discouraged. Travelers from Pakistan to Pakistani administered Kashmir and from Pakistani administered Kashmir to Pakistan must be provided adequate security so that they could travel without any fear of harassment and intimidation, since these people have no any other opportunity, any other country to go. Their first and foremost destination would always remain as Pakistan, to go abroad or to stay in Pakistan. So I present this resolution for your kind acceptance. Thank you very much for today's conference, your participation, your contribution, and we hope that we shall formulate, we shall draft a memorandum and that will be presented to External Action Service, various committees of the European Parliament, and to the different diplomatic missions in Brussels and across the world. So I
just wanted to ask for one little amendment, if it's possible.
Yes, please.
Because the power to the women, 33%. It would be good to work to 50% of the women. That it's like here that we could start it.
Yes.
If that is possible.
Yes,
to have this amendment.
That is still possible.
Yes.
Actually, I mentioned this
Yeah,
because
but maybe we should go step by step. But I don't know if
in the league, in the law, there is written
Yeah,
that the women will be given 33%.
Okay.
So at least it should be implemented.
Yeah.
Whereas it is not. It is not enforced.
Yes.
Even they are
Okay,
not given
okay.
33%.
So just, I mean, you need to apply the law.
Yes,
This
yes,
is, yeah.
yes.
This
We
is
are
what you are
stressing to apply
asking.
the law.
Yeah.
We are
Yes,
stressing
yes.
to apply
And
the law.
But,
working on the
working
future
towards
to get
50-50, yeah.
50%
Yes,
of the
Even
women.
it should be 52%.
Yes.
Gender balance.
No, 50%
government.
is good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
it would be nice. Okay, thank you. Working on it as an objective in the future, because women can do it in the very good. So we need more women in power.
Yes.
We need more women.
That's we very much appreciate your endorsement and also the editing of this resolution.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Manal. And
You're welcome. Thank you,
for
Mr.
your
Jan.
participation, for your comprehensive support across the region, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Pakistani administered Kashmir, and especially the current scenario which is affecting the vulnerable community as women and children. They are the most vulnerable, not only in Afghanistan, they are as vulnerable in Pakistan and more vulnerable in Pakistani administered Kashmir, because all the laws which are made in Pakistan are automatically transferred to Muzaffarabad in our part of Kashmir. So they are equally disturbing culture, languages, history, and everything. So once again, thank you very much, you gentlemen, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will remain in contact, and we will continue working for the good cause of human rights and liberties of the people.